It's time to set the record queer. Don't bother with the 11-second challenge. I hear the winning piece is rigged.
Welcome to Setting the Record Queer, a podcast where queer people talk about the pursuits and communities they love. This is episode 15, and it's about video game art and animation. My name's Alexis, my pronouns are it, its, and she, her, and I'm two of your hosts.
I'm your other host, my name's Kaylee, and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi Kaylee, episode 14 isn't out yet.
No, we recorded episode 14 5 days ago or something.
It was probably like 10 minutes ago. Like we just finished up with Quinn, we just got the audio file, and now we're here recording another one. So by the time you're listening to this, Kaylee and I will have just finished a gauntlet of a lot of stuff. We'll have just gotten back from Calathon. We'll have kicked butt in our speedrun of our co-op run of The World Ends With You Final Remix, which we got last minute thrown into doing because the person who was supposed to run TWIWY had to drop. Honestly, being able to run TWIWY in a major speedrunning marathon, I'm sure was, past tense, an incredible birthday present, and I probably couldn't have asked for anything better. And then I'm sure I definitely won the Metroid race a couple days later. You know, D-Eddie was playing it real risky, was a little ahead, but faltered at Mother Brain's doorstep or something, and I got good RNG and managed to rap well, and yeah, I'm sure I won, and it was great, and yeah. And then we traveled back home from California, and then literally the next weekend did it all again at Toricon right here in Rochester, New York.
Except for I had to run completely different games.
Yeah, so the Torathon speedrunning marathon, I'm sure went super well. I'm probably completely dead from working like 20 hours over the course of 2 days, but I'm sure we did great and had a wonderful time, and there weren't any internet issues or anything like that.
And there was a live Setting the Record Queer.
Yeah, there was a live Setting the Record Queer. It was amazing. The guests had so much to say. Look forward to that in your podcast feed. If it's not there, it might be there before this one goes up.
I highly doubt that.
We'll see. It just depends on how long it takes me to get the recording and process it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's all happened in the past. What's happening in the present, Kaylee?
Our present right now, or like the present when this episode comes out, or?
The present to us recording right now, as opposed to the future to us right now, which we just talked about as the past to our listeners.
But whatever, it doesn't matter.
Kaylee gave me like a solid 10-minute lecture on time travel theory the other day, so that's where my brain is at right now.
I made you listen to why Back to the Future made no sense. For like 20 minutes. I made menus in video games. I spent a whole week making menus.
Good job. They're very menuable. I saw them. You can select different options which do different things. Currently, most of them crash the game.
Yeah.
You can select most of the you can select any of them. It's just that a lot of them are programmed to crash the game.
They're not programmed to crash the game. They're just not programmed to do anything. So they crashed the game. And
then the other exciting bit of news was yesterday I got an eye exam because I've been having a bunch of eye strain and migraine problems for a really long time. Anyone who follows me on Twitter probably knows that. Yeah, it turns out my vision sucks. Kaylee can testify to how badly I failed the read letters on a chart test.
Very badly.
It was bad. And then I got glasses, and I'm still kind of in like glasses euphoria. Like, oh my god, everything is so clear and sharp and not blurry. I had no idea life could look like this, but it does now. And also I got really cute glasses, so like I am living the dream right now. I'm very happy.
So speaking of glasses,
I'm very curious to see where this one is going.
Our guest here used to work for Wait, no, that's a different word. But it almost sounds like glasses. Yeah, I give up.
Well, glasses are made of glass. Lamps are also made of glass. And our guest worked for Gas Lamp Game. Done! Got him! I just high-fived myself and you can't stop me. Hi, Aura!
Hello. That was an intro.
That may have been the best guest introduction we've ever done, honestly.
It definitely was not.
Oh my gosh. Hi, I'm Aura Triolo. My pronouns are she, her. I work on the video games, ostensibly as an animator, but often as many other things.
You make the beep game go beep. It's impressive. As someone who frequently beeps games, I appreciate it.
Beep.
Thank you for doing video game, because I like video game.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, why don't you give us a quick rundown of all of the things that you do?
Sure. So like I got my start mostly just like animation. Like the first game that I really worked on was Dungeons of Dredmor, which is also probably the most famous game I've ever worked on.
Oh, I played that so much with one of my friends in high school.
Nice. And from there I kind of like one of the funny things about working at indie studios is that it's really easy to get caught up in doing things that aren't technically your job description because somebody has to do the things and there's often not dedicated people to do the things. The next game that Gaslamp Games did was
Glasses games.
I listen. This introduction
You
is
did listen, clearly, because you just reverenced it.
the next game that Gaslamp did was Clockwork Empires, which was like a 3D sort of attempt to make a casual friendly door fortress. Didn't quite end up being as casual friendly as we wanted, but I did end up getting a chance to really stretch my wings on that game. Like I was involved in not just like animation, but like a lot of the game design actually. That was like where I got my first, like, I've always been interested in game design, but that was my first chance to really put that interest into practice. And I learned so many things. I learned so many things by doing them wrong.
I mean, that's a story we hear a lot on this podcast. So like, you're valid. We didn't hear that story from our tattoo artist, thankfully. But like, other than that, we've heard that story a lot.
But yeah, like, I don't know, like, it's funny because in many ways I kind of identify myself as an artist and a lot of my personal work is just art stuff, but what really gets me excited is like working with the designs aspect of games. Like I love getting into analyzing what the purpose of things are, like how things really cause players to act and feel. Like something I did a lot of on Clockwork was like we would get some sort of player feedback. And like someone would say like, oh, well, we have to, do this thing to fix that, right? Where that thing was sort of the obvious knee-jerk reaction. And I would like be like, what if they're doing it because this? I know I'm being very abstract here. I should probably use some actual examples.
Feel free.
So that we had a problem where I guess I should probably give some context to all this. Oh my gosh. So the game is like a sort of a RTS simulation game. You don't control the characters directly, you just sort of give them orders and stuff. And we had this problem where you could chop down trees and everyone who played the game, the second they started, would try and chop down all of the trees. 100% of the trees. They would just be like, I'm going to designate all the trees in the world and we're going to chop them now. And and this was a problem because like the way the game was set up, they would try and do other things afterwards. They'd be like, okay, I'm going to order my characters to build a building, but they wouldn't because those characters were busy queued up to chop like 2,000 trees. And people got very, very confused at this. And so the first idea that we came up with internally was like, oh, well, what if we just make it so we can only chop this many trees at once? And that technically works, but it's such a brute force solution. Like it's very much like, okay, well, why does this person want to chop trees? That's the interesting part. And what I sort of ended up proposing, and this didn't 100% work, but I think it works for this example, is like, well, okay, the start location for the game starts you in the middle of this giant patch of trees. What if we just made it a field instead? And had some small patches of trees nearby. Suddenly players are like, ooh, I want to only chop one patch of trees at once, because the psychology of wanting things clean is what's like governing people's behavior here. It's not like, oh, I want to actually chop all the trees on the map. That's exciting to me. It's like they just want to create a space.
Okay, but what if you just really like chopping trees?
I mean, that's an absolutely legitimate decision. I can't deny you that.
Catch me quitting this podcast to go play farming simulators.
There's an actual like lumberjack simulator, right?
I got an alpha key for Satisfactory yesterday, and I'm probably gonna play it after this podcast.
What's that?
It's like do you ever play Factoria?
I have.
No, I'm a fake gamer girl.
Okay, so like there's like a genre of games that sort of is building up around that kind of game, which is like conveyor belt sims, basically. Like find resources and you create really big, complicated, automated thingies to like process them basically. And if you were the sort of person who downloaded like conveyor belt automation mods from Minecraft, it's like that kind of deal. It's very weird space management. The same sort of person who's into like those train sims and stuff. I don't know. I really like it.
Oh, it's called Satisfactory because it's Satisfactor. I get
Right,
it.
yes.
I get it.
You did it.
Did it?
You understood the game of the name. Wait, I didn't even say that.
No. Wait.
What?
No.
So
Yeah, I guess I just sort of went on an immediate, extremely long ramble.
I mean, it was great. Keep doing that.
you think that was an extremely long ramble. Clearly you haven't listened to a lot of our podcast.
Clearly, you haven't listened to the episode with your girlfriend, Xandra.
I did, but I forgot.
Shh, don't call out specific people.
I mean, listen, no, Xander, when she gets excited about things, she doesn't stop, and I love that about her.
That recording that episode was tons of fun. But anyways, we're in episode 15 now, not episode 1. Holy cow, we've done like 15 episodes of this podcast.
Well, we haven't finished the 15th yet.
Okay, but also we did a live episode and an episode 0, so like...
Oh yeah, we've done 16.
So nah. Anyways, continue telling us about your history of game stuff.
Let's see. So yeah, like after Gaslamp, I mostly ended up working on a bunch of games that didn't come out, and like it's actually kind of funny. Like at this point, I feel like mostly what I'm known for, because I've worked on so many projects that were canned, is like being loud about video games on Twitter. I'll stumble across something in a game that interests me from a design standpoint, and I'll just write like a 20 post thread on it, and like people apparently like that because they keep telling me they're good. I don't know why.
I mean, I like that. So I usually do like that, in fact, because I'm always online.
I mean, big mood. I am also always online, which is one of the like perks question mark of working from home, which I do right now. I do a lot of contracting for small indie studios. Actually, I have a few possible contracts coming up that I'm really excited for, but I don't want to say what they are because that'll jinx them. Vancouver's got such a cool indie scene. Like so I live in Vancouver. I guess I should mention that. And like, oh my god, there's so many, like the basically the whole dev team for Celeste is up here. Like dev team for Necrodancer, a billion other studios I'm forgetting. Red Hook, the people who did whatchamacallit.
Oh, I love whatchamacallit.
Darkest Dungeon. So like I get a lot of chances to like ramble about things with other people locally and then be like, please hire me to work on your cool games. But yeah, like it's funny because as an animator you'd think I would be talking about animation all the time, but the vast majority of the time I work on animation, it is very like seat of your pants, like, okay, we need 1,000 assets, and I have to just be like, ah! Like I have friends who animate for like AAA games and stuff, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I got to spend 2 weeks on one shot, and I'll be like, I'm so jealous. What? How? If I'm lucky, I get 2 or 3 days at most. Usually it's 1 day. Oh, so like when I was working on Dredmor, we did 2 expansions for Dredmor, both of which I did all the sprite art for. Like, well, animated sprite art. I want to clarify that. I didn't do all of the background art. Or David Bongart, who was like the original artist on that game, did like a lot of that as well. But so our final expansion rolled around, which is Conquest of the Wizard Lands, and we I don't know the exact details of why this happened, but basically I was given 20 days to do all the assets in the expansion. And that was an experience. That was an experience of like, I think I had to do something like 6 animations a day, including weekends, to actually meet that deadline. And I don't remember most of that time, but like there was just this weird combination of like, you know how when you're really sleepy, you like get this weird creative energy that like lets you make things that you would not be able to make normally because you would feel like you would overthink it or something. That times like 20 consecutive days. It was just like I made some of the best work like pixel art I've ever done during that period, and also I was like dead for a month afterwards.
Oof. That sounds like it was a time.
It was absolutely a time. It was in some ways it was a good time. I also don't ever want that to happen again. This is the most video games thing, right? Like I did this thing to myself and it was great, and let's not repeat that. It was the same with my when I got laid off from Gaslamp in like 2016, the first thing I did like was spend 2 weeks working like 12-hour days on a clone of Tetris Attack because I was very excited about the idea of making my own game. And I actually really need to finish that at some point. It's like been sitting in my unfinished projects folder. I did like I spent like 4 days like making music for it and stuff, which is not I'm I don't think I'm good at music, but I am the sort of person who attempts to pick up every conceivable skill simultaneously. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do all the things in this game, even if it's totally unreasonable. I'm like low key proud of how that came out, even if I know that it is like silly of me to be proud of that. I don't know.
I mean, Tetris Attack is good. So like
Tetris Attack is good.
Something you deserve to be proud of. I'm terrible at Tetris Attack. I'm a Grandmaster ranked like Tetris proper player, but I cannot play Tetris Attack to save my life. So I think it's super cool.
See, like you're the opposite. You're the reverse of me. I'm really good at Tetris Attack. I cannot do Tetris. Like I can't. I'm so bad at it. How do I blocks?
That's a mood when I think about Tetris Attack. How do I blocks?
So get this. There is a competitive Tetris Attack scene in Vancouver. All the indie devs here, like there's a bracket and everything.
That's amazing.
So like I will frequently go to parties and be challenged. Like I'm sort of known as like roughly being in the top 5-ish. So like I will go to random parties and people will just challenge me to Tetris Attack.
Do you just like carry around a Super Famicom with you to play Tetris Attack, or how does this work?
Okay, more important question. If we meet in real life, can I play you in Tetris Attack?
Absolutely. Oh my god. I love playing that game with people.
I am so down to watch you get crushed. It'll be amazing.
You know who's secretly really good at Tetris Attack? Freaking Xander's other girlfriend, Amber. She like beat the hell out of me.
That's not a swear. That's fine.
Fair enough. She's like, for someone who doesn't participate in a competitive Tetris Attack environment, Amber just destroyed me last December, like over Christmas. It's just like, how are you this good? This is the problem. Like everyone in my polycule is better at video games than I am.
I feel like that is a problem that is specifically relatable to an incredible number of listeners of this podcast, but in the otherwise general demographic, relatable to almost no one. Like, congratulations, you have found the perfect audience for this. Anyways, why don't we get back on track here towards video game animation? So it's very clear that when you are doing animation stuff, you have a lot on your mind and a lot under your belt. You do a lot and you do it very, very quickly. So when you're doing all this animation, why don't we start with like, what kind of tools do you use?
It depends on the medium I'm going with. Like, lately I've been doing a lot of 3D, and for that I usually just use Maya. Like Maya's like, I don't know if it's still this way, but when I was in school, at least, it was kind of just the industry standard. It was what everybody uses. I think Pixar is technically at fault for making that the case. They really liked it and made cool plugins, and so everyone else kind of just started using it. And then there's a bunch of like, now that it's sort of the de facto, everyone makes cool plugins for it. So like there's a bunch of like Maya. So everyone I know has this love-hate relationship with Maya because it is the most complicated program in existence and it can do everything. It also loves crashing and is missing tons of basic functionality, like convenience functionality. If you want to do things slowly and by clicking on them 8 billion times, Maya is the perfect software for you. But if you want convenience, you have to go like download things from people. like my favorite plugin, like the one I use all the time, literally just lets me copy animation from one rig to another as long as they have like the same naming structure.
What do you mean by rig?
Oh, right. I guess that's not something everyone knows. So 3D models, right? A 3D model at its baseline, like just when it's a thing that someone's making, can't move. It's like a block of clay or something, right? You have to be able to tell it how to articulate, and you do that by putting what are literally called joints inside it, and then each joint is like given more or less like associated polygons that are like, okay, this polygon moves this much when this joint moves, and the process of creating those joints and associating them with the model pieces so that the character like can move properly is called rigging. And that's the thing I do a lot of because in AAA, there's often dedicated riggers, but when you're in an indie space, like when there's 6 people in your company, they're not gonna have the money to hire a dedicated rigger. You as an animator or a modeler, depending, will usually want that skill. It makes you way more like attractive. And I rigged all the models on Clockwork Empires, which is like an extremely large number of models, actually. Like definitely like in the like 500, 600
gosh.
range, I think. Clockwork had a lot of characters in it. One of the funny things about that game is the art team had like a 2-year head start on the programming team because the programming team was making the engine from scratch. And so by the time the game was playable in any capacity, we had already made a jillion assets that were basically designed around theoretical gameplay that didn't exist yet. So like we ended up in this situation where for the latter half of development on the game, we like were basically playing catch up. The programmers were basically playing catch up, like trying to figure out ways to implement this just massive, massive bank of art assets we had made. And that's actually one of the reasons I ended up pivoting into design and like coding on that game, is because there just we didn't need more art assets. We needed people to implement the existing art assets. And I was like, well, okay. So I should probably tell the story because it's great. So what happened was, when we sort of started realizing that we didn't really need more art and that we needed to start putting stuff in mostly, the art team director, again, David Baumgart from earlier, who's an amazing and cool person, gave us 3 on the art team, it was an 8-person dev team total, gave us 3 on the art team books on how to write Lua code and said, and the office was closed the next day for some reason, I forget why, I think it was construction or something, and said, okay, go home tomorrow for work, just do the first X chapters of these and come back with your homework, basically. And so we came back, right? And I got really excited about it, which is the thing I tend to do. And I not only did the chapters, I came back with a like buildable Lua program that had like a bouncing Monkey Island screenshot that says never pay more than $20 for a video game emitting fire particles everywhere. And yeah, and that's how I ended up being like picked to be the one who spends most of my time doing like programming and implementation.
Incredible. I wanna play that game.
Oh my god.
When's Bouncing Monkey Island screenshot as a shmup? Thanks.
Oh my god. I mean, now you're just making me want to actually make a shmup. That's like one of my favorite genres. Can I please be a Toho?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Good.
as the authority on this. As the authority on who gets to be a Toho, as the person to this day asks, what's Toho? And then someone explains it to me. And then I proceed to let all the information go in one ear and out the other.
Didn't you like try to play a Toho game once?
Yeah, I downloaded one because I was curious. I Googled which is the best Toho game to start with, and then I picked that one, and I downloaded it, and I couldn't get the frame rate to go below like 90,000 frames a second.
Right.
And as a result, I couldn't make the menu work to even access the options, because when I hit down on the keyboard, it flew back to where it started because the frame rate was so fast, and I gave up. And that's my experience with Toho.
Oh no.
So what would you say is unique about animation in games?
Oh gosh. I mean, so I can tell you what's unique about it for me in particular. Like, I think when a lot of people think about animation, they tend to think about like acting-y animation. Well, I mean, okay, all animation is acting. I guess I should probably establish that as a baseline. Like, I literally took an acting class in school. It was mandatory as part of like my animation learning. But like, they think about like very emotive, like acting to lines and stuff probably. But like games animation is often very like workhorse-like in a way. Like I spend a lot of my time, especially due to my nature of like working small indie contracts, doing walk cycles, doing jumping, like I've probably animated hundreds of walk cycles. Like that's like my specialty at this point practically. Running and stuff, shooting, like if you can think of something that isn't a whole lot of games, I have probably done a whole lot of it, right? Like, and so as a result, like you sort of develop a sense for how to put it. How to make a walk cycle really quickly and then add personality to it, like after you got the baseline in, right? Like it's not like I don't shoot reference, which is a thing a lot of animators do for all my walk cycles or anything, right? Like I know what a basic walk looks like, and so a lot of the time I could just quickly bash that out and then be like, okay, well now how do I make this interesting or unique or not? Actually, that's another interesting thing, right? So sometimes you don't want your animations to stand out, especially, I mean, this is true of films too, right? Background characters, but like it's especially true in games. This is something I had to think about a lot with Clockwork Empires because it's such a sort of RTS. If you make animations too distinctive, when you have like 50 similar looking characters running around on screen because they're all your like workers or whatever, then if they all start doing it, it's just really weird. Like if everyone has this really distinctive personality thing, like they like do like a dance or a pose or whatever that's like them, everyone is doing that. It's like the reverse. It robs it of personality in a way because now everyone is just doing this weird quirky thing. It's like, why are you all doing this? And so one of the things I had to really figure out on that game was actually like how to imbue the like animations with just enough personality that they felt charming without making them feel like they're trying really hard to be quirky and like being super over the top about it. Like there's an art to like crowd-ish animations that is so different from like animating a cutscene or something, right? Which is something I don't actually have a lot of experience with.
How much time have you spent like studying anatomy in your process of getting good at game animation?
Oh gosh, it's funny because the actual answer to that is that 90% of my anatomy study goes into my personal drawing work. Like one of the funny things about animation, especially about the kind of animation I tend to do, is that you can cheat a lot when it comes to anatomy. Like if you look at a lot of my Dredmor work, for example, it's all weird creatures, right? There's like some of them are based in actual anatomy, but like some of them are just like weird blobs or literally a potato. That's actually one of the monsters in Dredmor. And coming up with creative and weird ways to interact with those things almost sort of supersedes the anatomical aspect to a large extent. In 3D, it is more important, but it depends. Again, like the models in Clockwork Empires, just as an example, were so low poly that like mimicking muscles doing muscle things was not even within the question. Like, do the arms bend? Okay, cool. It's accurate. And so like really the core thing, I think, like the thing that really like defines, I think, good animation in terms of like there's a lot of things. I don't want to go too hard of a tangent here because there's a whole 12 principles of animation thing made by Disney, blah blah blah. But like I think that fundamentally speaking, having a good understanding of what a good pose is like the absolute foundation. And when I say a good pose, I mean like most animation is basically made up of transitions between distinctive poses. I'm doing this, I'm doing like you can't see me because this is a podcast.
No, you're gonna have to describe it.
But like, like I'm Gaston and I'm flexing my muscles, right? Like that's a pose. And I'm sad and I'm like looking despondent. Like every animation is made up of a bajillion of those poses, right? But like it's really important that all those poses feel really solid, feel really communicative. Like they have to be distinct. You have to be able to read them really quickly. And if you have a good sense for posing, if you have a good sense for what feels like what evokes the right feeling when you look at it for even an instant, it just makes your animation so much better. And that's cool because it is a skill that transfers almost directly from drawing. Like I've gotten so much for my animation just out of making just trying to push poses really hard in my drawings, like make them really exaggerated, seeing how far I can get with something that makes feels like it makes sense. And sometimes in animation you deliberately go with poses that don't make any anatomical sense because it makes them read better. Like how it feels is sort of paramount, right? Actually, I was rewatching Spider-Verse recently because it just came out on digital, and that movie's so good with that. There's a scene, this really famous scene in that movie. Have you seen it, you two?
Yeah. We saw
yes.
it like real close to after it came out because oh my god,
I nodded.
she nodded.
But like so the scene where Miles like kind of gets his confidence, right, and is like swinging through the city. So there's this moment where he like comes down and he's like jumping off of these like cars basically, right? And every time he jumps off of a car, in the middle of his jump, he hits this really dynamic, dramatic comic book pose. And they hang on that for a few frames. Like they let him jump into the air and hang on that like dramatic I'm a Spider-Man pose. And that sells the whole sequence. It sells it so incredibly well. Like because the whole sequence is about him, he's like gaining in power, right? He's like becoming Spider-Man in this very literal sense. And because of that, his acting, he can't just jump between cars. He has to jump between cars in a way that makes him feel like a super cool dude who's Spider-Man now. And just by hanging on those like I'm comic book poses every time he's jumping, it does so much of that scene. It's so good. I love that movie.
Spider-Verse was absolutely incredible. As a lifelong Spider-Man fan, it was so good.
So here's the funny thing, right? I never got Spider-Man until I saw that movie, and then I got Spider-Man. Like I grew up watching like Batman the Animated Series, basically, right? So I was the like Batman person, and I was like, Spider-Man is silly. And I watched the Sam Raimi movies, and I was like, Spider-Man sure is silly. And then I got to Spider-Verse, and I was like, I get it now. Now I understand.
You fake comic books girl. I was reading the Spider-Man like newsprint comics when I was like 8. My
Oh my
grandparents had like bought a subscription for me, so every time I would go to visit them, I would just sit there and read Spider-Man comics. I missed so many of them and I had no idea what was going on in the story, but like, gosh dang it, I read them.
It sounds like you're the fake Spider-Man fan. When I was a kid, I would just find random men and throw spiders at them to see real Spider-Man.
Okay, yeah, I can't argue with that. Kaylee is the true Spider-Man fan.
I don't really like Spider-Man that much, although I did like the movie Into the Spider-Verse.
You're valid.
Quite a bit.
Anyways, so what particular challenges are there for working in a medium where things have to be rendered live and on the fly and where you cannot perfectly predict every combination of poses that a player might employ versus working in something like cinema where you can, you control exactly what's going to happen in every second of the production?
It mostly demands like a lot more technical expertise. Like you have to have a good sense of what the game is doing. A lot of times I actually will hold off on polishing anything until I've seen it in game for the first time because it's kind of revelatory. Like even if you kind of set up the cameras similarly and stuff, you don't ever quite understand how it feels to see game animation in game until you've actually seen it. And then it's like, oh, okay, this part stands out, this part looks wrong, this part isn't working. Like understanding how things are meant to link up, or being able to dictate how things are meant to link up, how stuff blends. Like actually, so in my most recent game that I've been working on, the main character's movement has this like complicated combination of, so they can be running in any direction and also facing in a different any direction at the same time. And so what I ended up doing after sort of a whole bunch of parsing this stuff out was like making 4 different directional runs and making sure that they were timed, the feet specifically, but also the whole rest of it kind of were timed identically, so that like you got running to the side, running backwards, running forwards, etc. And then the game can interpolate, like blend, so that you take front and you take right, and you can get sort of a diagonal sort of thing going on. And if you don't time those identically, you get weird things where like the foot will slide in this weird curvy way as they run because it's interpolating between these things that have totally different timing. And then on top of that, the game's also got like the upper torso is doing all kinds of other things at the same time. They can aim up or down or left or right, and they can also shoot in addition to having that added. Like you can have a situation where someone is running diagonally forward and to the right while aiming up and to the left and shooting at the same time in that game. And like sort of figuring out the confluence between all those things requires a lot of not just like strictly animation know-how, but like technical animation know-how, like understanding what is being set, like how you're setting it up, how the game is going to interpret it, that kind of stuff. And this is like, I imagine for a lot of AAA animators, this is extremely baseline stuff. Like on the AAA side of things, like if you think about something like Uncharted or whatever, that stuff, like they've got probably hundreds of layers of blends going on at any one time. They've got like this thing, someone pointed this out to me. There's this thing in Uncharted where like sometimes when you pass by objects, like Nathan Drake will like pat them or whatever as he goes by. The amount of tech that probably goes into that one motion must be immense because like, okay, he can't be holding a 2-handed gun because that doesn't make any sense. Okay, where's his hand right now? Like, okay, where's the object? Can he pat it in time, or is he gonna like do this weird stretchy thing with his arm as he runs by? It's funny how the details can often be the most complicated things to figure out. There's so many little tiny personality things that like are actually super expensive to make in games.
Now I appreciate that part of Breath of the Wild where Link always looks at things when you're walking by them more, so thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
The best part of Breath of the Wild is the part where anytime you run by a dog, Link looks at it. Like,
the correct
the worst
response.
part of Breath of the Wild is that you can't pet the dog.
Shoutouts to that Twitter account.
The
Oh my
Can
God,
You
it's so
Pet the
good.
Dog Twitter account is amazing.
It's
And
amazing.
will forevermore influence my choice of games. Anyways, let's move on.
So, is there a game animator sub-community of the larger gaming development community?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like I'm literally in a Discord that is just for game animators. Like that's all it's for. And there's like a jillion people in there. Like I will say that like, I mean, I guess there's sub-communities for everything, right? But like I definitely find that AAA animators tend to congregate in different ways than like a lot of indie animators do. Like most of the big structurally organized things I'm in are are run by AAA people, whereas like there's a lot of very more casual hangouts for like indie animators. Like I met like the first indie animator I made, which is Paul Veer, who's done a bunch of stuff for Flambeer, worked on Nuclear Throne and stuff like that. I met him on Tigsaurus. because that was where all the animators were back when TigSource was a thing that people cared about whatsoever.
What is that?
Oh, right. I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting that not everyone has access to my brain and knows all the things I know. So TigSource I think it still exists. It's like a game forum set up by, I want to say it was Derek Yu, but it might be Derek Yu and other people Derek Yu's like the Spelunky developer. And it was in the like early days of indie, quote unquote, like that was sort of the place where everyone went. Like Fez, when Fez was first starting development, like Phil Fish posted like screenshots and stuff on that forum. That was sort of known as the place to go. Same with actually Rain World, which ended up taking a while, but it was also like a game that was sort of like people would post, like when they were starting their new games, they would post like blog basically updates on that forum. And there was a pixel art sub forum, and that was my home for a while. And then it was also sort of common knowledge that you don't go in the social areas because it's all full of gamers and they're bad. So like that was like the big indie space, and there were a lot of indie artists there. And then like all of them have kind of moved onto Twitter now. And there's some indie focused Discords that have like a lot of indie animators in them. But like I don't know that I've ever, like, maybe I'm just not cool enough to get invited. but I've never seen like a just indie animators Discord, and maybe that's just because there aren't enough of us to do something like that. But like, oh my gosh, there's so many, like in terms of the percentage of people they hire AAA, like animators are a huge chunk of that. Like in general, character modelers, animators, environment modelers, like just modelers, animators are just like huge percentage of the industry. And so there's like lots of big communities for them. It's actually kind of cool because like, I don't know if this is just my perception or not, but I feel like there's a lot more women in animation specifically than in a lot of other sub-communities. I don't know if that's just because it's like something that they're more publicly perceived as being allowed to get into or something, but like it's really cool because like when I want to hang out with game dev ladies, it's really easy to meet a jillion of them in those Discords. Like they're everywhere and they're doing cool things. My ramble ran out of steam.
Choo choo.
Yeah, basically.
Ramble train has now arrived at the station. Please mind the gap.
I will actually. I do have a little more to say. So I will say like animator communities are fascinating because you can almost always, in every case, tell what specific shows somebody grew up with that made them want to be an animator. Like there's the people who like draw all the Lion King OCs, and and you know there's people who draw all the like there's, generally speaking, I think almost everyone in animation has some show or another that got them really excited to become an animator, and they kind of carry that inspiration with them as they go, even as they mature and change. And that's super cool because it means you can like connect with people in interesting ways. Although if you ask me to point to a show that inspired me as an animator, I don't know. I think I might just have to say Looney Tunes because I watched so much of that as a kid.
I mean, that's valid.
That's extremely valid.
Looney Tunes is good.
Cartoon Network had like the Acme Hour, and I would just watch it all every single day.
Ah, yes, Looney Tunes, aka regular-sized Chungus.
God,
What?
No! No!
Kaylee,
Absolutely not.
Just ask the next question.
I'm on strike now.
Okay, I guess I'm doing this podcast myself then.
So as a follow-up on the community, what have your experiences been like being queer in that community?
It's interesting because like I don't know how much this is a thing, but like I feel like, so I only came out last year. I guess I should mention that. Like
I remember.
Like I was more or less in the closet until then, and by the time I came out, I had already built a reasonably sized Twitter audience. And so as a result, I feel like I got a lot of goodwill just built in from that. And let me be clear, I was super nervous. I was like panicking, freaking out. but no, everyone's been super, super good about it. Like if anyone doesn't like the fact that I'm queer, they haven't said it to my face, I guess. And like everyone locally has been super supportive. No, it's been great. Like, I kind of am shocked, to be honest. For a very long time, a big part of why I didn't come out for so long was the assumption that when I did, it would be the end of my career. Like that you can't be trans in games. No one will hire you, right? And maybe that's true. I don't know. Like, I mean, I know of some trans people who are out and work in AAA games, but I don't know of a ton of them. But as an indie developer, at the very least, I have found nothing but acceptance. And that's kind of awesome. And it makes me feel very lucky. actually, because I doubt that's most people's experience.
That's good. It's always, that particular question is always what I'm just like, oh boy, here we go. Anytime we have a guest on who's like in any way adjacent to video games, cause gamers. But it's good to hear that things are all right over in your corner of things.
I theoretically, at least, like, again, like, there's always the possibility that people, like, are disliking me quietly or privately, right? Like, it's harder to tell when I'm not, like, part of a big institution where they have to, like, tell me that I'm being the way they don't want me to be or something. All they have to do is not hire me, and I'll never know.
I get to deal with that right now. It's fun.
Ugh. I'm so sorry.
Anyways, moving on. The gaming community, or specifically the game development community, I feel like is one that in particular has a lot of events and community gatherings and stuff like that. So what kind of are there events or, maybe sort of like game jam type stuffs in animation circles specifically? Like what brings this community together? What do you do together? Do you?
So in my experience, actually, a lot of the organization in animation is coming from a few sort of high profile animators I know who are kind of organizing stuff around them. Right now, there's a big GDC thing that goes on. It's not actually at GDC, it's just during GDC where Twitch.
What's GDC?
Oh, sorry. The Game Developers Conference. That's the Game Developers Conference is in San Francisco every year, and it's kind of the big, all the game devs go to it event, although there is an increasingly large push to make that not the only big event because, it's kind of prohibitive for a lot of people to go to the US right now, especially from certain countries. But so right now there's an animation event that goes on during GDC at the Twitch headquarters in San Francisco, where they basically get a bunch of game animators from all places and have them do little micro talks. And it's streamed for how long is it? 10 hours or something? It's quite a long thing. And it's a really cool place to meet up with people. And it's kind of a neat community thing where people who aren't attending can participate in chat and stuff. And beyond that, I know that there's some there's a website called is it called AnimX, or did they changed their name recently? AnimState, that's the one. That is the same people who run that Twitch event are trying to sort of set up as a cool game animation website, and they do all kinds of community events and stuff like that. They're definitely AAA focused because they're run by AAA people, but that's the biggest game animation community that I'm aware of. Beyond that, it's there's a lot of little community events that are just for animators in general, not just games animators, like the 11-second challenge. I think that's still a thing. That was a thing when I was in school, where it's a monthly mini game jam thing where they just give you 11 seconds of footage or dialogue from a movie basically. And they're like, hey, animate something to this. Any medium you want, go for it. And yeah, it's cool conceptually. It's just one of those Twitter art prompts or something, except that it takes they give you a month because animation is time consuming. But I'm not super aware of any small indie specific animation community stuff going on right now. I think all of us are just very tired. A lot of indie animators are freelancers because that's kind of the nature of working for indie studios a lot of the time, and so we're all just tired all the time.
Understandable. Have an excellent day. So if someone's looking to get started in game animation, what kinds of recommendations would you have for them? What tools should they start with? What resources should they look to?
Oh my gosh.
What communities? What should their first project be? Stuff like that.
So it's funny because you made me realize that I had never actually finished answering a question from earlier when you were asking what tools I used, because I mentioned Maya for 3D, but so for 2D, there's actually a huge suite of really cool animation software. I know that Graphics Gale is the one that a lot of the dedicated 2D pixel artists use. It's a totally free pixel art specific animation program. I tend to use Photoshop for animating pixel art because I'm weird. And then I use Clip Studio Paint for 2D animation. All right, cool. We got through that one. As far as getting started, it's tricky. So I'm gonna say something that may be slightly unpopular. I don't know if animation school is worth it for most people. I think it maybe is not worth it for most people. I say that as somebody who went to and graduated from animation school and then spent 2 consecutive years unemployed working retail. It's a way to get started, especially if you have very, very, very little art experience, but just you'll drive yourself into so much less debt if you just do a lot of things on your own. And I know that maybe not everyone has the like self-motivation to like be like, I'm gonna spend a year just learning a thing and I'm gonna be disciplined about it. And that's sort of the case when you go to school. But like, please just there's so many resources out there right now. Like back when I was in school, again, you're gonna hear this a lot from me because back when I was in school, highend3d.com was sort of the place where everybody went for tutorials. I know that AnimState has a bunch of stuff. And beyond that, like honestly, one of the best things you can do is just like follow a lot of animators on Twitter, because like we're artists and we link a lot of tutorial resources constantly. I could probably be better at that. Oh, what was that? There's one more site I should probably plug actually while I'm at it. It's a rigging focused one. Rigging Dojo, that's the one. They have a lot of free resources as well for like if you want to do character setup, which is actually super in demand in AAA because nobody wants to do character setup. Because it's funny, like hybrid roles are super in demand in big studios because if you're good enough to do art on that level, you probably just want to do art instead of spending all your time programming for people who are doing art. But the people who are really good at it are like, everyone wants to hire them. But yeah, so like there's a lot of online resources for like animation stuff. Generally speaking, I think the de facto baseline animation book is probably The Illusion of Life, which is a Disney book. But as with all things, like you don't need to stick to the canonical North American animation education, right? Feel free to take it from any source that you want, or just teach yourself from whatever people are doing on Newgrounds. Like that's legit too. So many amazing animators like taught themselves from watching stick figure flash animations and deciding they wanted to do that.
Can confirm, I watched tons of stick figure flash animations and I still don't know how to animate anything. Wait, what?
Well, you weren't trying to learn.
I really liked those extremely violent stick figure cartoons back in like elementary and middle school. That was kind of my special interest for a hot minute.
I know that feel. I seriously considered making them back then, but I did not because I was lazy. But yeah, like I'm a really big advocate for like it is never too late to learn something, and it is never too late to teach yourself something. Like I didn't start learning how to draw until I was like 19 or something, right? There's this like a thing with like artists, right? That's like, oh well, they all grew up drawing, right? No, I didn't grow up drawing. I used to look at DeviantArt and cry because I wanted to know how to draw and I couldn't. Like that was my entire teenage years, and then at 19, like I went to a community college and I took like one class on like how to the draws, and then I started doing stuff myself afterwards. And I eventually did go to art school, and real talk, 90% of the value to me for art school was being forced to draw for like 10 hours a week. Like having someone like sitting down and being like, hey, you have to draw shit now. You have to draw for 3 consecutive hours. Go. And like, then I did that. And that made me really good at drawing. Drawing a lot is the best way to get really good at drawing. Animating a lot is the best way to get good at animating, right? So like, as a baseline, if you're interested in animation, like pick up one of the softwares I mentioned earlier. Maya's a little too expensive for most people. I would say that if you want to get started there, probably go for Blender instead. It's free, open source. It's a little clunky, but hey, it's 3D software and it's not like $1,000. Do they have a website, or is it just blender.com or whatever? Blender.org, that's the one. Like pick up that software, like Google some how do I animate in X tutorials, and like just sort of run wild, right? Like you can learn so much, and also get yourself like involved in talking to people. I know Twitter can kind of be a bad, horrible place a lot of the time, but it's also it's kind of the only way to get in contact with a lot of people who work in games, because people who work in games don't usually go on other social sites. Like I say that as if internet forums are still the primary method of communication, which they're definitely not anymore. But yeah, no, I mean, find people, talk to them, ask them questions, and just make cool things. Like make things that excite you, and you will learn so much, because like making cool things and messing up constantly is how you learn. It's great.
I just got a quick note in here. As someone who's trying to learn new things, it's refreshing to, a lot of our guests have had the answer like, well, I've been doing this since I was 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, absolutely more power to them, but it's nice to hear not that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like that's like informed so much of my worldview, right? Like realizing that I could draw because I wanted to draw and because I just did it a bunch. Like I used to, when I was writing, I used to take the BART, which is the like rapid transit train in the Bay Area to school every day. And it was like an hour commute each way. And I would just bring my sketchbook and I would draw the entire time. And I improved more during drawing that year than I ever have like before or since, because I just spent all my time drawing.
Well, hey, there you have it. Just do the thing.
Yeah, for real.
I feel like that is one of the set of like recurring themes we get on this podcast. You want to do the thing? Just do the thing. Just do the thing.
I'm nodding. You can't see it, but I'm nodding.
All right, final question for this segment. What's coming up? What things are in the pipeline that you are okay to talk about publicly right now?
That's like sort of up in the air right now. I'm at the start of April. I have a bunch of possible job opportunities coming up, and we'll see which one of those ends up being what I work on. And so I may or may not like talk about those on Twitter, but I definitely shouldn't say anything until I've seen whether I'm actually going to work on them or not. Beyond that, like, I really want to get back into doing personal work this year. Like, I have so many cool projects laying around that I just want to get back to. Like, I want to do animation for me again. I haven't done that in forever. I want to, like, I got started making cool things for myself, right? Creatively speaking. And I feel like that's something I want to recapture. So hopefully my main Twitter account will be a place where I post some more art this year. That's like what I'm excited about coming up.
That is extremely valid. I look forward to your art posts. God, I should really get back to drawing someday. I was almost kind of okay at it, but now I just play video games instead. It was honestly just like...
Same.
I started playing video games and I got way more attention and gratification for a fraction of the effort and was like, well, I guess video games on the internet is my hobby now. But I really liked drawing. Now all I ever draw is D&D characters.
Oh my god. I could do a whole podcast on the ways in which my relationship with my art changed over time as I became a mid-tier popularity furry artist. Oh my god.
Look forward to hearing from Moom like a year from now in episode what would that be? That would be episode like 40 or so ish about the life of a mid-tier furry artist. TM.
Oh my god.
Anyways, let's move on to our performance showcase. So once again, this is going to be a performance showcase where we sit here and try to describe in an audio medium a lot of very visual stuff. But anyways, we have basically just 4 samples of Aura's work here. And there will be a link in the show notes to go look at all 4 of these. But it's just a set of some GIFs, some graphic interchange format files, little animations, all pretty different. So we're just gonna go through these one by one, talk about how they came to be, that sort of stuff. So now comes the fun part where I have to describe these. That's something I've honestly like gotten real good at over the course of this podcast, is just describing really weird stuff. And speaking of really weird stuff, so this first animation sample we have, it's a 3D animation sample, and it starts with this thing that sort of looks like a little obelisk, but then there's a little eye at the bottom, and the eye kind of looks around, and then suddenly it starts to kind of pull itself up from the ground, and there's a bunch of tentacles, and it sort of like hoists itself up into the air and then settles back down again. And I'm off the bat just very impressed with like the sense of weight and realism this has for being clearly a very sci-fi creature in an entirely artificial computer environment. So, Aura, why don't you tell us about this piece and what like the context is and stuff like that?
So this is a character from Clockwork Empires. This actual animation was not in the game. We didn't get a chance to really implement this character, and I was really sad about it because it's the most complicated and fancy character in the entire game. So I ended up making this as a personal piece after the game stopped being a thing. The character is like this basically, this giant eldritch horror that's supposed to basically just come and ruin everything when cults in your colony get out of hand. And it's the most complicated rig I've ever done by far. It has like, 6 entirely separate tentacles on its body. Like, as a general rule, the more limbs something has, the longer it takes to animate in 3D, because you kind of have to just coordinate all those. And this character has long tentacles, so I had to put a huge number of joints in it. So there's like, each of those tentacles has something like 5 individual controllers on it. Like, this one animation took me so long. But I'm really proud of it because, like, speaking personally, I think one of the things I'm always working on is trying to give a really good sense of weight to my animations. It's something that I struggled a lot with at first, and I don't know if I'm still struggling with it, but like, I definitely pay a lot of attention to it, and giving a sense of weight to a thing that is like basically just a giant thing on weird tentacle legs was an interesting experience, because it really the weight kind of has to come through the tentacles in a way. And
the weight has to come through the tentacles. Setting the record queer out of context. That is the second time we've talked about tentacles on this podcast in the past couple episodes.
No, it's not, because that last time we talked about after the episode aired, because we couldn't talk about it live.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, no, like, this is just the thing where I'm like really happy with both how the animation came out and the rig itself, because rigging a character with that much geometry on it was kind of a first for me. It's a really complicated and dense model, and it's just got so much going on. Like, Like, this character had probably 3 to 4 times the complexity of any other character in the game, and that made it a rare sort of challenge to be like, hey, I'm gonna actually spend some time on this. Whoa.
So what kind of techniques did you use to sort of bring this piece together and like sort of give it this like weight and realism and detail?
As far as the character itself, like, there's one thing I really wanted to sort of make sure I did was have the tentacles be able to stretch, which was like a sort of somewhat of a rigging challenge. I ended up using a bunch of online resources to do some fancy maths on that one. And the funny thing though is that because they're able to stretch, it gave me a lot of freedom to do some really weird things with them. Like when the creature like crouches down, it does this like sort of brace with the top of its tentacles, which is like, oh, the way it ripples through them is like something I'm really happy with, because that feels like the most weighty action in the whole thing. And that would not be possible if those tentacles didn't stretch, like because the way they stay on the ground at the same time is like, let's just say that would be tricky to pull off with a traditional arm type rig. It would require some really complicated math, but just because I made it so that they can actually lengthen and shorten dynamically, you can get this really good ripple effect as they move that would just not otherwise be possible. And yeah, like the whole creature, really, fundamentally speaking, is all about those like ripple feelings. Like, giving that sort of smoothness to its movements is what sells the like tentacliness of it. I feel like
really
I'm rambling
sells
slightly.
the tentacliness. This animation is just really satisfying to watch, though, honestly. But in the interest of time, let's move on to the next one. This is probably my favorite piece of the bunch.
Turtle.
This is a good boy if I have ever seen a good boy in my life.
Turtle.
Yeah, so I love my fiance. So this is
I contribute to the
a more like, I
podcast.
guess, traditionally 2D animated piece. I'm assuming it was drawn digitally, not analogly. That's not the right word.
That is correct.
So it's basically just like a turtle, but instead of a shell, it has a big cannon, and it fires the cannon. It has sort of like the recoil and like the reaction to it. And there's just a lot of like, I guess, like dynamism going on with this one. So yeah, walk us through the making of this very, very good boy.
So this was an animation test for oh my gosh, my allergies are acting up so much. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
This was an animation test for Defender's Quest 2, which I don't think is out yet still even. I don't think this asset will be used in it. This was just when I was auditioning for the game. And they have this like turtle that is also a tank, and it is a good turtle. It is the best turtle. And
It's really good.
and I kind of knew right away that the hard part of this would be not making the thing on its back distort horribly every time it moved, because moving like hyper like geometric objects in space is so when you're making 2D animation, one of the like core fundamentals that, to be honest, is still kind of tricky for me is making sure things stay the same size every frame. Like unless they're not supposed to, right? But because you're drawing like what, this is like probably 12 or so separate drawings, and you need to maintain like a really strong consistency of the thickness of things, of like how big they are, etc., throughout the entire, like all those separate drawings, and or else it just doesn't like look like it's the same thing as it moves, right? And so for organic things, you can kind of get away with a lot. Like, they don't need to be exactly the same all the time, because our bodies change as we move them, right? Like, your arm in one direction doesn't look anywhere near the same thing when you like bend it or whatever. But with a completely solid object, you have to really pay close attention if you're going to move it in, like, if you're going to like rotate it, especially. Like, one of the first animation exercises a lot of instructors give, like once you sort of start getting your feet under you, is basically to rotate a face like 180 degrees, because that's really tricky. Like you have to have a absolute mastery of understanding where the features in the face are to do that kind of rotation. I mean, there's a reason that in TV shows this stuff doesn't show up very often, right? Like really smooth rotations of objects, unless they're very simple objects. And that's because it takes time to get those things consistent. So yeah, like the sort of thing on its back was like the first thing I drew for almost the entirety of this, and the bottom was just a blob. And then I sort of began working out the rest as I went. But I wanted to make sure this had a lot of personality, and I wanted this to feel like a really cool, cute turtle that also is a cool, cute tank. And so I wanted it to like have this nice little bound to it as it jumped forward, and I'm actually really happy with how that came out. This project was like the only time I've ever really gotten to do professional like high-res 2D animation, and it just makes me so happy. 2D animation is like my secret love. I spend most of my time doing 3D these days because it's a demand, but I love 2D so much. I love it.
One thing I'm curious about specifically is like the gunshot like smoke effect coming out of the barrel of the tank. Can you talk about how you drew that and how you sort of like stylized it?
So that one, I'm not gonna lie, that one is kind of off the cuff. So like, I love effects animation, and I actually did all the effects animation on Clockwork, and then all the files were lost, so I can't show them anymore. But but like, effects animation is kind of my deal, and I've always been really interested in it. Like okay, there's a really famous animator who does a lot of amazing film effects animation, and I kind of want to mention them just so people can see why I love this so much. His name is Michel Gagney, and he's like a veteran like film 2D animation artist. He did a lot of the FX on, like, if you've seen a really fancy effects 2D animated thing in a film like during the 90s or whatever, he probably did it. Like, he did scenes for The Iron Giant and stuff like that. And he also did almost the entire of the art for Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. That's a game. And like, his work is just so fluid and like really, there's just a really satisfying feel to it. And as someone who enjoys satisfying things, I also desire to make satisfying things. So like, I've spent a lot of time like poking around with FX animation. The FX animation for this one is a little rushed, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was under a specific deadline for this one, so I kind of spent all my time on the turtle and then just sort of made a very basic, like, on the first frame it's like kind of a mass, and there's like a sort of, well, okay, on the first frame there's kind of like a sort of piercing bullet effect thing, and then it's a mass, and then it breaks up. But I think if I were to do this again, I would probably focus more on the whole piercing effect, because while I really like the whole I want to emphasize the pushback on this animation, right? Like,
the recoil looks really good.
Exactly, right? No, that's so important to me. Like selling that. I something I actually put a little special extra detail into is you can see when the turtle pushes back, its little toes kind of like crinkle up a little bit, and there's like a little skid mark. Like, that is one of those tiny details that just makes me really happy. But yeah, like, I think the fade at the end of the smoke maybe softens a little too much. There's sort of an art to effects. Is all about understanding how the pieces of things move. Like, fire is all about, like, okay, you've got this big bulk of wibbly stuff, and then like there's things rising off of it, and then lightning is more like there's this thing like shooting, and then little come out of it, and like, I know I'm not making any sense at all right now, but
keep going though. I'm loving this.
But like, there's just this really there's this deep feel when you have an effect of like, okay, how is this moving? What is it like? What's its I don't have the words, but like, yeah, there's this just sort of feeling in the way everything moves, whether it's smoke or water or whatever, that is like very innate to that thing, and capturing that is really exciting to me. And so I think that's what really it makes me the happy.
This turtle is so good. Like, final thoughts, good turtle.
I like this turtle. This is probably one of my favorite pieces, even if there are, like, all these pieces, things I would change in it now. That's just this is how I art, right? Like, I look something, I make something, and then I like it for a while, and then I immediately want to change it. This is the life of the artist.
Cool. We have been doing a whole lot, so I think we're probably only going to do one more. So the last piece we're going to talk about is it's something a bit different. I like how we've sort of covered three very different styles here. This is a little pixel art animation. It's a little guy riding on a cloud, bobbing along. The cloud has sort of a nice bubbliness to it, where the parts sort of move to the back as the cloud is moving forward. Then the guy kind of grabs the front of the cloud and pulls it up, and suddenly there's a cannon, and it fires a couple shots, and then the cloud sort of falls out from under the guy, and he flops onto the ground. That is the best description of this thing I can give. Once again, take a look at the show notes. So Aura, what's sort of unique about animating in pixel art? And then how did this come together?
Okay, so this was a creature for the final Dredmor expansion, Conquest of the Wizardlands, and this is the Cloud Gremlin, and they were just my absolute fave because they're such a weird and interesting concept. So the way that creatures for Dredmor would work is that David, the art director, would like basically give me the messiest like 5-minute concept sketches for things, and then just be like, okay, go. Like, I had total creative freedom for basically everything else. And I was in the depths of my 20-day madness at this point. So I was like, okay, well, the cloud obviously has to do this cool cloudy thing as the character moves, right? And I ended up spending a lot of time on that, and I was just so really happy with the effect. As far as making pixel art goes, making pixel art is basically making 2D animation, but you don't have to pay as much attention to the consistency. Some pixel art people will probably get mad at me for saying that, but like one of the nice things about pixel art being so chunky and on such small dimensions is that it's way easier to keep your characters consistently proportioned, because you just, it's a matter of one, you're often working on a distinction of literally, okay, is this pixel filled or not, right? Unless you're getting into some extremely detailed techniques called subpixeling, which most games don't use because it takes forever. If you like that idea, check out Hard Forth Alicia. That game uses a lot of it. It's going to be amazing when it comes out. And the because pixel art's so chunky, it gives you a chance to like really animate very, very, very quickly. I mentioned I did 6 of these per day, right? Like during Dredmor, it took me like 3 days to do the turtle in comparison. Like you can cheat a lot with this stuff. You can, like, if you look at the gremlin's head, it's literally just like during the walk animation, it's literally just moving like 1 pixel up. I literally just like moving that layer in Photoshop like 1 pixel for a bunch of it, right? But because the cloud's animating so much, you don't notice that one part of it is like not got some crazy detailed stuff going on. And then during the shot, that was just a really fun idea, which is like, okay, well, it's riding on a cloud. How does it attack you? What if it shot lightning from underneath the cloud? And makes use of one of my favorite effects, which is fake motion blur. There's just like a single frame, I think, in there of sort of brown smear as it pulls the cloud up, and that sells the motion of that a lot. I love, like, I'm a big advocate of single frame motion blur. I could go into a whole talk about this because I've talked with a bunch of other pixel artists about this, but like selling impacts, like if you're motion blurring something, it's probably because you want to feel super fast and impactful. Selling that is a truly magical art and can make such a big difference between something feeling like really active or not. And I use a lot of motion blur in Dredmor, but I use it very carefully to make things swooshy. Beyond that, I'm just really happy with the death animation. The death animation is one of my faves just because it's one of those times I put a huge amount of time into an effects like thing, like all the cloud like kind of evaporating into little pieces, like little effect. That's like I was talking about earlier with the effect stuff. Like that's an example of an effect that I am super happy with. Like it kind of just evaporating. It's not based in realism at all, but like it looks fancy, and that makes me happy. And also, like, again, I had total creative freedom for this stuff, so it was like, okay, well, what does it do when it dies? Well, obviously, the cloud should disappear and it should face plant. Like, Dredmor is not a serious game at all, and so, like, making extremely silly death animations was one of my favorite part of it, because, like, I don't like gore or anything. I'm not into, bloody stuff, but so you like doing these things in a very like actually not that violent way was really exciting and fun. There's a character called Samedi in the game who's like a skeleton guy, and like when you kill him, he like does like a little bow and then just kind of blows away into dust. Like he doesn't, you didn't actually beat him. He's just like, all right, sure, you're good, and he like bye, bows, and just poof. Like I just love that kind of stuff.
All right, I think it's about time we move on to our next segment, the listener questions. So, if you would like to ask a question to any of our future guests, you can email us at settingtherecordqueer@gmail.com, contact us on Twitter at strqueercast, or come hop into our Discord at bit.ly/strqcord. Our first question this week comes from @transsalamander on Twitter. What are your favorite examples of animation of any kind from any medium that inspire you, excite you, and make you want to share it with others?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I actually literally, whenever anything inspires me, I just save it basically. And so I have just folders and folders of things that I adore. As mentioned previously, Spider-Verse is amazing and inspirational, and I will probably be analyzing that for ages. I'm a big fan of the animation of games with really detailed pixel art, like Iconoclasts and Heart Forth Alicia, which is not out yet, but it's really cool. Gosh, let's see, like what's a really good... This is going to sound weird, but I really adore a lot of Homestuck's animation because it makes a lot out of a little. Like, I really admire how that series takes like what is clearly seat of the pants flash animation, just like get it out, and like makes it really impactful. They do so much with, like, one of my favorite animations in that whole thing is like there's this scene where one of these characters is falling and another character's trying to wake them up, and they're shaking this character, and instead of just like a normal shaking them, they have a 2-frame shake. It is like up, that's 1 frame, and down, and the up has like a little jitter on it, and that's it. But it's timed to the music, and it's just perfect. It's got so much impact to it, and like it's so minimalist, and it's actually perfect for the scene. Like, oh my god, it makes me so happy. Like, yeah, like there's two genres of things I like. Things that make something out of very little, and then things that are just absurdly detailed and amazingly, like, lovingly animated, and they all make me super happy.
Ah, yes, the two genders.
Oh, I will say also a special call out to Breath of Fire 2 for being like one of my biggest inspirations as a pixel artist. Like the attack animations, the combat animations in that game are just, they're like shining, blindingly fancy examples compared to everything else that released at the time. Like, dear Lord, they're so good. Capcom knows how to animate.
Cool. Our next question comes from @fidgetcetera, a Twitter name that I just absolutely adore. What's your favorite kind of artistic or animation shortcut that feels absolutely like cheating, like hands out of frame, for example?
Oh gosh, that's definitely like, how to put it, like something I do. This is something I do a lot with my Dredmor pixel art, honestly, which is just like only showing the edges of a movement. But what I mean like that, this is sort of a complicated technical, like, it's hard to explain without visual reference, but basically when you're animating something, like if someone is raising their arm, what I will often do is I will animate, okay, their arm's down, okay, their arm's just a little bit up, okay, their arm is 90% of the way up, okay, their arm's 100% of the way up, and I will completely skip the middle of it. And this not only saves you drawings, but it also gives things a really like impactful, like, I know I've been using that word a lot this podcast, but like it makes things feel really chunky in a satisfying way. And like a lot of early games would do this just for technical reasons, except like just with like 2 frames or something. But like if you just add just a little bit of like that 10% on the edges, it actually makes it feel smooth, even though you're, again, missing a huge chunk of what would theoretically be there. And so like boop, 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 up, down, like that sort of thing. Like doing that with everything is like my, like, I am constantly abusing that particular technique, and I love it, and I will never stop doing it probably.
Okay, well, I think it's time now that we move into our final segment of the podcast, which is, of course, Kaylee's Question of the Week. Now, for those who have never listened before, Kaylee's Question of the Week is a fairly standard question, the sort of thing that you would maybe see, like, on a mandatory survey put forth by your friendly alien overlords that have taken over between the recording and the airing of this episode, I imagine.
I really like where the Kaylee's Question of the Week averse is going, honestly.
The answer is in circles and nowhere. This week's question is, what animation style would you like to replace real life with?
Oh my god.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Everyone is menacing. Everyone is ripped and buff. And there's just massive, like, deep jet black scratch lines on everything. Oh, it'd be so good.
So early JoJo, not like skinny and fabulous, but buff.
I mean, I feel like you could do both.
Oh, so like part 4.
Yeah, part 4 probably.
I want okay, so I want something like how Trigger does its animation, where they throw all of their budget into like specific scenes, and then to pay for that, drain all of their budget out of other scenes. So things oscillate quickly between like these awesome impactful scenes, and somehow we made Inferno Cop look good, which was also made by them.
I just want to say Trigger are absolutely masters of like using as few frames as possible and still making it look amazing. They're so good.
Just like watch the first 10 seconds of Kill la Kill and like just see how they do this. For those who aren't aware, Trigger's the studio responsible for Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, and Gurren Lagann. Well, they were still part of Gainax for that, for those who aren't aware.
I'm going to give the most self-indulgent answer possible. So my answer is Show by Rock, because everyone is extremely over the top and hot, and then sometimes they turn into furries for no reason.
Oh, hey, that's my experience with Twitter.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. My alternative answer would be my current favorite little random game that I picked up, Air Memories of Old, where everything is made of just like squares, and it's and except like the visual effects are extremely high resolution. Go play Air Memories of Old, please. I need someone to cry at about this game because it's so good.
I played an unfinished build of that game for IGF like 3 years ago.
I need the demo. The demo is on itch, and I keep meaning to sit down and play it. I've watched like the trailer for it, and it's completely different. Like, without getting too far into this, it has the same flying mechanics, but it's a completely different game at that point. Like, it seems like it has like crafting mechanics and stuff like that, and you go around talking to people, and you like do little quests. Also, in the final game, nobody has facial features.
Oh, okay.
They went with like a gorgeous minimalist style. Anyways, play Air Memories of Old. Oh my god, please. It's so good. Also, game developers out there, if you're hiring, hire the people from Forgotten Key because they went under after that game.
Or me. Or you.
And I want to see them make more
You can also
stuff.
hire me. I need a job.
You can also hire the other two people on this podcast, yeah.
Hire me to do pixel art. I love pixel art. I love it, and nobody hires me to do it because nobody wants to make pixel art games right now.
Well, any final thoughts on this subject?
I forgot that I knew this much about animation. Thank you for reminding me that I can actually ramble about this at length.
Yeah, when we were chatting in preparation for this, you were like, I just do most of this by the seat of my pants, so I don't think I'm going to have much interesting to say. I was just like, you are lying.
A lot of our guests have said that, and they've all been wrong.
It just takes asking the right questions and people just start gushing about all of the incredible things that run through their brain at 90 miles per hour when they do something they're good at. I love this podcast. We learned so much cool stuff. But I think that's about it for this episode of Setting the Record Queer. So, Aura, if people want to find more of you and your art and your animation, where can they do so?
The best place would be, honestly, just to follow me on Twitter. Oh god, I hate spelling this out. It's a really old screen name that I need to change at some point. But I am at Moom, M-O-M, Anive, A-N-I-V-E, and that's the me. I also have a few alts, but I don't know if I want to share those yet.
You don't have to share those on the podcast.
Our listeners need to know.
I mean, listen, if it's their destiny, they will discover it. It'll come to them.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. This was super duper awesome. It's really making me want to get back into doing drawing, but god, I do not have time. Anyways, if you enjoyed this podcast, maybe consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/settingtherecordqueer. Our patrons can get early guest reveals, access to a special Discord channel, high quality or early episode releases, and even special thanks on the podcast. We'd like to offer our special thanks to our $25 patron, Kadeho, who you can find on Twitter as @callmekadeho, call me Cadejo. Otherwise, please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave a review, tell a friend about us, talk about us on social media. All of those things immensely help us grow this podcast. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do so via our Twitter at STRQueercast, email settingtherecordqueer@gmail.com, or come hang out in our community Discord where you can chat with other Setting the Record Queer listeners, your hosts, and even some of the guests and like behind the scenes technical production of Setting the Record Queer who've decided to grace us with their presence at bit.ly/strqcord, all lowercase. While you're there, ask questions for us for our guests. Feel free to send us feedback, comments that you might have. If you have an idea for who or what could be on this podcast, or you think you might be a good fit for this podcast, please tell us. We're always looking for ideas. The logo for this podcast was created by Cubotic. That's at QBTIC on Twitter, or Cobot, QOBOT.tumblr.com. The theme music for this podcast was composed by Thrill Me Music. You can find more information about her work at thrillmemusic.squarespace.com. This podcast was edited by Kaylee and produced by yours truly, Alexis. Kaylee, where can our listeners find you?
People can find me on Twitter at witcheshex, that's WITCHS Hex, or on Twitch at the same name but with an underscore between witches and hex.
And you can find me on Twitch and YouTube as Proto Magical Girl, or Twitch at proto.ml, and on Twitter and Instagram as Princess Proto. Our next episode is going to be on YouTube video making with The Princess and the Scrivener. I'm really excited for that. They're super cool. But hey, that's all. Thank you so much for listening. We're now 15 episodes into this podcast. I'm still having a great time. Hope y'all stick around for 15 more.
Bye.
Sometimes what we're looking for when we ask you a certain question is not the answer to that question. So
Fair enough.
We just use this as an
Podcasting
elaborate
theory.
way to figure out your passwords.